The warriors seem to be rather well organized and they're not letting the monsters intimidate them. On their leader's signal, three of the men jump to attack the leftmost marauder while the rest of the gladiators try to distract the others. One of the warriors remains behind and he watches the manticores attentively. He must have been tasked to observe the battlefield so that he can warn his teammates if the situation changes. The scorpion-like creatures are at least 5 times bigger than the gladiators, and they could probably crush any single one of them in their giant claws. The warriors seem to be experienced in battle, however, and they manage to remain unharmed by anticipating the marauders' movement and by covering for each other in the time of need. The group from left, in particular, seems to be doing surprisingly well. They manage to weaken the creatures with a few well-timed strikes, and they're ready to move in for the kill. The most agile of the three jumps on the creature's back and he stabs it fiercely in the back of the head. The marauder screams in pain and it tries to attack the warrior with its tail, but the gladiator jumps off while the other two make a rush for it and stab the monster in both its eyes with their swords at the same time. Very well coordinated. The crowd bursts into loud cheers and shouts as the scorpion-like creature falls to the ground, and the three warriors raise their sword for a few seconds to signal their victory to the spectators, and then they'll head towards the other marauders in order to help their teammates fall back. We hear the desperate shout of the gladiator who was observing the battlefield, "Fall back now!" The gladiators look up, but they have no time to react. It takes only a few seconds for the manticores that had been circling the skies all this time to dive down, to sink their claws into the warrior's chest, and then to soar back into the air carrying their prey. The screams of the gladiators silence the crowd completely as the beasts fly higher and higher, and two of the gladiators drop their sword from the pain immediately after being attacked. One of them managed to keep hold of his weapon and he is now using it to stab his attacker in the underbelly. The manticore screams as it drops the warrior, who falls to the ground and crushes his head against the hard soil. His head gets crushed would be more appropriate. I mean, crushes his head sounds like the thing came down and then crushed its head after it fell. The other two gladiators are raised a bit higher for the attackers, but then they also get dropped to the ground and die on impact. The Romanian warriors are now finally starting to panic. The leader was among the ones who died. Having lost the person who was giving them direction, the gladiators begin to break their formation, and the marauders take advantage of this by grabbing one of the warriors with their claws, while other marauders impale him with his tail. As if all this wasn't enough, two more manticores are just now entering the fighting area from beyond the gate, and they're running fast towards the surviving gladiators. The observer gets killed first. He didn't seem to be very skilled in combat. He gets mauled in an instant. I mean, he wasn't a very good observer considering he warned in the last second. Well, I suppose he did warn them. They just didn't back away fast enough, I suppose, because they were flying above head anyway. They just dropped down, and he saw them dropping down, and he was like, "Hey, back the fuck up," and they didn't. I guess they died. The observer gets killed first. He didn't seem to be very skilled in combat. He gets mauled in an instant. The other gladiators did not last much longer. The desert marauders and the manticores finally joined forces against them, but they couldn't stand a chance. At the end of the fight, the arena falls completely silent except for the sounds of the manticores feasting greedily from the carcasses of their hard-earned prey. "By the gods," Bruce says as he watches the battle's aftermath in horror from beyond our iron grating. "It appears that not even our reigning champions could defeat these fearsome beasts," the announcer says. "This does not look good for the following divisions. Is this event going to end in a bloodbath?" The iron gates for the second division is now getting raised. However, nobody seems to be coming out. After about 10 seconds of silence, we hear a scream coming from their direction. "I'm not going out there," a man screams at the top of his lung. "If you want to kill me, then kill me now. You saw what happened to those gladiators. We don't stand a chance." "You're going to march in there and fight," another man's voice says, "or you'll be getting a death far worse than being eaten alive by a manticore." "No, please, have mercy," the other man shouts. The discussion between what I presume is a gladiator from the second division and a guard of the arena is getting a lot of reaction from the spectators. Some of them seem to be getting scared and others are fidgeting around nervously in their seats. "We seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties." Seriously, technical difficulties? The announcer says. "There's no need to be alarmed. I'm certain that our guards will get the show up and running again." The announcer stops mid-sentence as a single dwarf steps out of the second division's gate, carrying a bottle in his hand and walking at a relaxed pace towards the desert marauders. Both the crowd and the announcer fall completely silent as they watch Hardwick walk calmly. I mean, to anyone who doesn't know what type of shit he's capable of, considering he's a giant. Well, you're in for a show, I suppose. Both the crowd and the announcer fall silent as they watch Hardrick walk calmly and then stop in the middle of the arena in order to chug down the last contents of his bottle. Hardrick claims. There's nothing like a fine bottle of dwarven ale to raise your appetite before a battle. I wish I could do accents and stuff like that, the dwarven shit, but I mostly just make sure to embarrass myself, and I cannot be bothered with, like, actually. Maybe I should. Maybe I should listen up some, impressions and try and copy them in something. Maybe I will. We'll see. Don't expect too much though. He then starts turning his head around as if he's looking for something. Say, you wouldn't happen to have something that I could throw this empty bottle in away, would you? Then he shouts towards the announcer as he shows him the empty bottle in his hand. Announcer watches him with a puzzled expression on his face without saying anything. Like a trash can or a paper bag or something, so I don't make a mess, Hardrick says. The announcer and the crowd watch the dwarf silently, unable to decide whether he's being serious or not. While Hardrick was talking, one of the scorpion-like creatures slowly creeping up behind him, aiming to attack him with his claws. You know what? Never mind, Hardrick says. I'll just use this as an improvised weapon instead. Then he immediately turns around and clobbers the desert marauder in the head with his bottle, which breaks into shards of glass that stab the creature in its eyes. The monster starts screaming in pain as Hardrick makes a quick jump, landing with his fist on top of the marauder and smashing it against the ground, causing a loud shockwave, while also forming a small crater below the creature due to the force of the impact. One of the manticores that was still up in the sky quickly dives down to grab Hardrick with his claws, but the dwarf steps away at the exact moment the monster reaches him, and he grabs it by the tail and then spins it around for about 4 seconds, building momentum, and then he throws it at a wall far away from him with all his might, causing the beast to smash right through it with a loud booming noise. The crowd and the announcer are both speechless. They're looking at the dwarf with bemused expressions on their face, not knowing how to react. If I was Barry at this point, I would just be giggling in my fucking enclosure. You don't need to worry about that wall, Hardrick says, thinking that his reckless behavior is the reason for everyone's silence. I checked that area out before the battle. There's nothing but an empty storage room on that side, so there's no danger of anyone getting hurt. A loud roar of cheering noise drowns out the rest of Hardrick's words as the spectators finally regain their previous vigor, and start shouting and clapping like never before. See, now that's more like it, Hardrick shouts with a wide grin as he sees the people cheering. This is what an arena is all about. You all better hang on to your seats because the fun is just getting started. He then turns towards another marauder and he headbutts it so fiercely that it drops to the ground in an instant. Release the second wave, the announcer shouts as a few more desert marauders come out of the large iron gates that had been opened previously. Making their way from behind the marauders, a new species of creatures now entering the fighting area. The creatures look like a large version of porcupines, but from what I understand, they should not be related to them in any way besides their look. I mean, there are creatures like that are not related to other creatures at all, but you know what, you would think that they are, but they are not. Understand, they should not be related to them in any way besides their look. Unlike regular porcupine, the quills on their backs are deadly weapons, and they are sharp and durable enough to give elven steel a run for their money. Sheesh, seriously? I mean, they must be hunted to like near extinction if that's the case. The creatures have the ability to launch their quills at projectiles with a very high accuracy and speed due to their high regeneration rate. They also have the ability to regrow their quills almost instantly. This provides them with the near unlimited stock of ammunition to use against their foes. By the way, if it's high regeneration, I'm guessing it's magical regeneration, but obviously actual regeneration. Even if you could make a creature that would have like instant regeneration, it would still use up resources, and many of the cells would be looking more like fused in place rather than slowly forming. So yeah, it's more. I mean, it is magical regeneration, obviously, because that would be absurd otherwise. This provides them with near unlimited stock of ammunition to use against their foes. Their appearance and their behavior have led people to call these creatures archer porcupines. Very cool. A few of the porcupines that have been positioned themselves several dozen feet behind Hardrick is now turning their backs towards him and getting ready to attack. Hardrick is still fighting the marauders and he doesn't seem to have noticed the porcupine. Should I shout a warning to him? I don't want to distract him in the middle of battle, but if those porcupines manage to aim their shots right, he might be in trouble. This choice does not seem to be in the walkthrough, so we will just choose ourselves. I mean, I highly doubt even if one of them hit him, they would do anything, but I might as well tell him. I mean, it's not like it's against the rules to tell him. Warn him, sure. Yeah, Hardwick, I shout, behind you. Hardwick looks back and he sees the Pokemon getting ready to attack him. He waits for them to shoot and he dodges at the last moment, causing the quills to hit a desert marauder instead. He then dashes towards his ranged attackers, not leaving them any time to ready up a second shot. Pummels them repeatedly with his fist until they're all either dead or unable to move. Nice one, Barry, Hardwick says. I owe you a beer. The marauder who got hit by the quill was the last one standing, and the damage it took was enough to send it falling down. Send it falling down? I mean, send it flying back sounds more accurate. Sending falling down doesn't seem that impressive, you know. I mean, if you're just standing down, if you fall down, that's not like sending you falling down. If you're flying, maybe sending you falling down, but just standing, I don't know. Maybe it was flying, who knows. I mean, Marauders no, I don't. Who flies in this? I don't remember. Who cares? The Manticores have all abandoned their meals when Hardwick started his rampage. They're now back to circling. Oh, the Manticores are flying. Okay, it was not flying then.